Last time, we saw the conclusion to the Namek arc, with Turles also heading back out into space, and Vegeta coming back to Earth with everyone. Will Turles be showing up again though? We'll be covering all that and more in part 3 of What If Turles Survived. Immediately after leaving Namek, Turles actually has no clue of what he wants to do. He has no more seeds for the Tree of Might, so he can't plant another. As much as he does want to plant more, he can't really do that right now, but it doesn't really matter to him. It seems like the power of the Tree of Might is ingrained within him now. He thought maybe he could just keep eating fruits and grow stronger, but something already changed with him. Goku already noted it too. So maybe as is, he's fine. He has grown stronger from the battle with Frieza too. Healing too because the ship he stole has a healing chamber on it. A very nice resource for him. Although he's a pretty big target right now. King Cold of course knows about Frieza's death by this point. Mainly because Turles actually taunts King Cold. He never goes to Namek, which means Namek's actually safe. Because Turles starts communicating with King Cold on his ship. He's a little bored right now and he wants to fight someone else, so he lets King Cold know that he was the one to kill Frieza. He's not going to find any trace of the Frieza Force left on Namek. If he wants revenge or something, King Cold's going to have to track him down. Which is exactly what he does. It's not exactly too hard because he also has a Frieza Force ship right now, allowing King Cold to track him pretty easily. But that's what Turles wants. He needs another test of his power, especially in a 1v1, rather than a 2v1 like he did with Goku. This will be a first for him, the first time fighting while fully healed, with the power of the Tree of Might, and fighting alone against a strong opponent. But much to his surprise, the fight with King Cold isn't really too extravagant. Turles knew he was powerful and likely stronger than King Cold, but this is worse than he thought. King Cold's no fun to fight against, with Turles killing him relatively easily, wiping out what little remains of the Frieza Force as well. He didn't just do that just so he can get a good fight though. That was a big reason, but the main reason he did this is because he wanted to steal Frieza Force mothership and see if there was any intel on there. Mainly regarding the Tree of Might, and there's nothing on there. Kind of a bummer still, but whatever. Turles will find another Tree of Might, and if not, he's gonna grow stronger regardless. He knows he can now. But strangely enough, while he's alone in space, he figures out that he's wanted by another group of people, and not an army this time. The Galactic Patrol's actually after him. They've known about him for a while, and with him killing Frieza and King Cold, it's made him one of the biggest threats in the galaxy, maybe the universe in general. Now the Galactic Patrol's got an eye on him and they want to stop him because he could cause a lot of havoc. They of course know he was some sort of space mercenary before, but now that he's defeated Frieza and King Cold, that power kind of worries them to say the least. This should be a fun time alone for Turles. Back on Earth there's a passage of time, up to the point where Goku's supposed to get back on Earth and when King Cold's supposed to show up. But of course, neither of those happen. Goku never goes to Yardrat, and King Cold doesn't show up because he's dead, and there's no Mecha Frieza because he's also dead. But around this point in time, a time traveler does show up. It's future Trunks. With a few bits of info for everyone. Of course he's mainly there to give Goku the heart virus medicine, and warn him about the heart virus in general, as well as the androids. Here, a lot of Trunks' timeline is actually the same, because they ask about Turles, wondering if he ever came back to Earth, and Trunks says Turles never returned. He's actually heard about him. But it's really only from Bulma and Gohan. And the thing is, they barely knew Turles. The last time they saw him was on Namek. He's not sure why, but he never did come back to Earth. Maybe he's dead, or maybe he saw no reason to come back to Earth. Trunks never got an answer, and it's probably for the better, because if he came to Earth, that could cause a lot of trouble, especially with the androids still there. Little does Trunks know, the reason Turles never showed up to his planet was because, well, there was nothing really there to interest him. He almost did come back at some point, but he saw that there was an apocalypse going on. Not a huge one, but it's still a noticeable scale. And Turles couldn't sense any strong powers there, so he didn't bother coming back to Earth, assuming that all the Saiyans there died, which was pretty underwhelming for him. But Trunks also has one more thing to show off. A golden aura surrounds him as his hair stands up and turns golden. This is a form called Super Saiyan, at least they assume that's what it is. Gohan actually unlocked this sometime during his training. Derived from anger, although he got it a lot later on because no one knew this existed. Eventually Trunks was able to unlock it himself too once future Gohan died. This is huge news for them because they've never seen the Super Saiyan transformation. That never happened on Namek. So now they have a new goal to work towards. Knowing that the Super Saiyan form exists, that's going to be a real big help for them. Just in case, Trunks is going to return in a few years' time to make sure everything's gone okay. But for now he's going to go back to his timeline, hoping he can save the future. Of course, the two timelines are separate and all he's going to be doing is changing this timeline. More than he expected to. Him showing up actually caused a huge ripple effect, because not too long after his appearance, everyone could sense a strong presence coming towards Earth, and it's a very familiar and ominous presence. Goku can immediately tell by the key. Goku flies over to where he scented the ship, and sees a Frieza Force ship landing. And, unsurprisingly, Turles steps off. Well, it's a little bit surprising because from what he heard, Turles never came back to Earth. But Trunks traveling to the past actually did alter some things, mainly because he went Super Saiyan, and Turles was able to sense that way out in the depths of space. He actually does monitor Earth occasionally. Of course, in the future timeline he stopped because there was nothing interesting there. He couldn't sense the androids, and no one had Super Saiyan by the time he was still monitoring it. But here, he sensed this immediately and came here. He only recently learned to sense Ki on Namek, so he didn't know who this was. But he wanted to check out that power in case it was related to Kakarot or something. Plus, he also decides that he wants to lay low here. The Galactic Patrol's no issue for him, but he'd rather not have to deal with that. Of course, he doesn't realize that Bulma's friends with Jocko, but he doesn't say this out loud, and she wouldn't report it anyways. It would be pretty easy to fend off the Galactic Patrol, but it would be annoying. He'd just be fighting dozens of people, who are far too weak to put up a good fight. There may be some strong people there, though, that he doesn't know of, so hopefully this gets him off their radar. But not only that, he's going to grow a lot stronger here, whether it be through training with the other Saiyans, or, and this is a long shot, growing another Tree of Might. Since there was a Tree of Might here before, even though Goku destroyed it, Turles feels like there might be some sort of remains here from it, hoping he can find a seed to plant another one. Although he comes to the realization not too long later that a lot of the damaged Earth was already restored. When Purunga recharged, not only did the Namekians revive Ten and Chaozu, but they already did learn from Kami that Earth was damaged by something. So out of kindness, the Namekians actually restored the damage done by the Tree of Might. So there's absolutely no trace of the Tree of Might. Turles will probably have to give up on that for now, unless he tries to recreate his own or something. Thankfully, he doesn't know of Super Saiyan either. They just say that was Goku's power he sensed. Which is really weird because it felt way different from what he sensed from Goku beforehand, but he doesn't really question it too much. It does make sense that strong power would be Kakarot. But returning to Earth does cause one big issue. Naturally, a lot of them aren't too sure about having Turles here, but it's probably less risky than Vegeta, especially because once Turles comes back, Vegeta tries to pick a fight with Turles. Vegeta's had a disdain for Turles ever since he met him, and it is kind of mutual between the two. Vegeta tries to pick a fight, but it doesn't really go too well for him. Turles defeats him with relative ease, letting Vegeta know that he also killed King Cold while he was gone. He learns of the androids too, and decides he's probably going to stay here a while. If they're going to be strong opponents, he'll want to fight against them too. So on the upside for Trunks, he did actually let everyone know about the androids, so hopefully it will go well here. But obviously he didn't intend for Turles to come back either. But Goku's kind of glad about this. He was hoping to see Turles again. So this is a pretty nice surprise, especially because this kind of helps up with their training. Turles obviously still isn't really a good guy. He's pretty much in the Vegeta territory, but he's a lot more willing to actually work with the group, especially Goku. Once more has shared identity with Goku as a low-class Saiyan, that kind of does help out here. Goku, Gohan, Piccolo, and Turles train together, with Turles also getting a lot of use out of gravity training. Over this passage of time, at some point Goku eventually does unlock Super Saiyan. Now all he really knew is that Trunks and Gohan unlocked this from anger and sadness. If Goku had one of those emotions as catalyst, maybe he could have unlocked it sooner, like on Namek for example, but he unlocks it through training and much later than normal. Naturally Vegeta and Turles try to get that too, with Vegeta even leaving Earth to try and train for it himself. He's been very solitary in general besides being with Bulma, which is also relatively rare, but they still become a thing. As for Turles, he's relatively solitary too, but he's more extroverted, and he does try to blend in with society a bit. Deciding if he's going to stay here on Earth for a while, he wants to live a good life, so he seeks riches here on Earth too. He feels like he's grown past the need for his space conquest, especially because he could just do that alone. He doesn't need a crew anymore, and conquering planets is pointless without his Tree of Might, and he has no use for an empire like Frieza had. Especially because he kinda gets used to laying low like this, and having a more low-key lifestyle. So if he's gonna live here with a calmer life, maybe he should try and make it a lofty life here too. We'll be seeing more of this side of him later on. At the end of the few years of training, androids 19 and 20 appear in the city just like normal. In this city, they actually encounter Turles and think it's Goku. They don't have much data on him, and when they try to attack him, he's able to fend them off, letting the group find 19 and 20 pretty easily. Although unfortunately, Goku still does fall to the heart virus pretty much like normal, but it should be all okay. Turles is still pretty strong as is even though he doesn't have Super Saiyan. And just as the fight's about to begin, Vegeta shows up too. Feeling pretty confident in his ability because he shows off his newest power, he's also become a Super Saiyan. Vegeta fights Android 19, while Turles fights Android 20. Of course for Vegeta this isn't really a problem. Through intense training and emotion, he was able to unlock this form on his own, feeling like he's finally surpassed Kakarot and Turles. He's elated right now, especially after defeating one of the androids. Although much to his surprise, Turles is actually keeping up with Android 20. Now in comparison to them, Vegeta thought these androids were weak to begin with. But still, to think that Turles is fighting without Super Saiyan, it kinda does annoy Vegeta. Turles is able to destroy Android 20, meaning he can't get back to his lab. Vegeta makes a snide remark too, wondering how strong Turles would be if he didn't use the Tree of Might as a crutch. He couldn't even unlock Super Saiyan before he and Kakarot could. Maybe Turles is just inadequate as a warrior, at least in Vegeta's eyes. But Turles doesn't take the bait. He reminds Vegeta how easily he beat him in that battle they had so many years ago. When he first came to Earth, he asked Vegeta to remind him who won that battle again. Not to mention, the look on Vegeta's face when he first came to Namek. Vegeta's insults don't really faze him because he knows Vegeta's simply afraid of him. Super Saiyan or not, that won't change that fact. Piccolo tries to calm things down, but it's already too late. Vegeta and Turles are about to get into a fight with each other. But right before the battle starts, they sense another familiar power nearby. Trunks has finally returned, with them now of course realizing who Trunks actually is, Vegeta and Bulma's son. He was stillborn here, by the way, which makes him pretty relieved to hear. Also, he gets an update from the group as to what happened. First of all, he asks why Goku looks a little bit different and why his ki feels different. Then he realizes that's not Goku. That's Turles. He does remember hearing that Turles looked very similar to Goku, and yeah, that did turn out to be true, but he's more so surprised to see Turles here in general, which is especially concerning for him because Turles never showed up in his timeline, and as Trunks puts the pieces together, he slowly begins to realize anything he does here isn't going to affect his timeline, it's going to affect this one. Well, at the very least, he could try and save this one from the androids. Even more concerning is the fact that two different androids showed up, androids 19 and 20. Thankfully they were defeated and they weren't able to escape. But this still might be an issue, because he doesn't know how androids 17 and 18 were activated. Sure, they didn't show up yet, but maybe they're about to show up in a different city soon. Maybe they're going to activate automatically. They don't even realize that they're supposed to be activated. So this introduces a new problem. They're going to need to find androids 17 and 18 and confirm that they're actually gone, making sure they're not activated and never will activate. So even without Jiro escaping, they're still going to have to look for his lab. They all regroup at Capsule Corp to try and figure out what to do next. Thankfully, there's not any androids running around right now, at least to their knowledge, so it doesn't seem like anything's too urgent. Which is really good because Goku's still got to recover from the heart virus. He's gotten his medicine already, but it's going to take a bit for him to heal. But an even bigger threat is lurking about, high up on the lookout. Kami is watching over everything. Of course here, Piccolo and Kami don't even fuse yet. Actually, they don't have a reason to fuse here at all. But Kami senses something terrifying down on the surface. But the presence disappears. He warns the others of it. It felt like a mix of everybody's keys, as well as the key of a bunch of normal people just screaming out. There's some sort of other monster down there and he doesn't know who it is, or what it is. But the most he could do about it right now is warn them about it. No one has a clue about what's going on. Of course, the thing that he sensed was Cell. Still going around absorbing people, and being a lot more covert because it seems like no one's even aware of him just yet. He tries to be a lot more careful. He does try absorbing some people, but he goes for a different target here. Slowly he makes his way towards Jiro's lab. He actually knows where that is, and if he's lucky, he'll be able to find the androids there, unactivated too. He keeps his presence really low profile, not even absorbing any more people. Especially because more and more, he's starting to realize that the androids might not even be activated yet. If they were, he'd expect to hear more about them on the news. He only heard about 20 and 19, but 17 and 18, he's heard nothing about that on the news. Maybe they are out there, but it's more likely that they're still at the lab. And eventually, Cell is able to make it to the lab, way before our group can even find it. And it's like Christmas morning. The androids are there for him, just for the taking. They're not even activated yet. This is way easier than he expected. He can't believe it. So, he simply just absorbs them, becoming perfect right then and there. But he's not done with this lab yet. He knows that his present self is in this lab too, hidden away somewhere. Now, of course, it would be no use absorbing his present self, since he's still very early in development, but that present self might have some extra data that he doesn't have, especially because Cell could tell by now that this timeline's different too. So, he finds his present self, destroys him, and also takes whatever data is left on the computer. Now, he's not able to get any extra DNA for himself, but he does get data about Turles, who he didn't know about before. This data was just sent from Dr. Gero right to the computer. He still knows very little about Turles, but Cell at least knows that there's someone else here. Someone who shares some sort of connection to Goku, especially because of the resemblance. But that's of no concern right now. Now with perfection, Cell destroys the lab, leaving no trace of it behind. And he floats above the remains, laughing to himself. That really was easier than he expected. He still can't believe it either. He's so glad that he's become perfect, especially this quickly. But now that he's perfect, he wants to have some fun pretty soon. And simultaneously, back at Capsule Corp, the group is able to sense this all go down. They sense a huge amount of ki, and it feels like a mix of everybody's ki. There was a brief spike in it, and then it disappeared. They sense Cell destroying the lab. They might not just be working with the androids here. This is where we'll leave off for now. What do you guys think about this part? And what's going to happen next time? Leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think. As usual, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help out the channel and shows me you want to see more like this. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.